to another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast right here on the CLNS Media Network. Brian Hines and Alex Barth here, as always, to break down the Patriots' second preseason game against the Green Bay Packers, which was Saturday night that the Patriots kind of won 21-17. It was unfortunately cut short due to a scary situation with Isaiah Bolden. Rightfully cut short. It was the right move to call that game, but it looks like he's doing better. We've had some positive updates from him. Released from the hospital, traveled back with the team to Foxborough here. So we're break down the football from that point, and we saw some Mac Jones for a few drives. I think it was 18 snaps, like 3 drives.
Three drives, yeah.
Got a good look at Bill O'Brien's offense as he continues to unfold some things. So plenty of football stuff to take away from that second preseason game Saturday night.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think that this was probably the most, between the joint practices and then this game, this was the most valuable reps. I think when the roster's all said and done, look, there's a lot, I think, that's still to come this week, but I think we're going to look back at this past week and kind of that was when the roster was built.
Yep, I agree with that. And I guess we'll just start with Matt because that was kind of the big news, his first preseason action. I think he was 6 of 9, 52 yards, so didn't really, blow the box score away there, but I thought he was good. I thought he looked comfortable in the pocket. Like the big thing was under pressure. He had a few throws that he made under pressure. We all know that was one of his weakest parts of his game last year, statistically, a bottom 2 or 3 passer in all of football under pressure. So looked good. He had a few, one a dig downfield to Kendrick Bourne with the guy right in his face. He had
Yeah.
that long ball to Devontae Parker where he stepped up in the pocket to buy some extra time there. So I thought that was a positive sign for Max, seeing him work under pressure and looking poised back there.
Yeah, the big question, if you remember all the way back to when training camp started and we did that show, it was like one question for each position. My question for the quarterbacks was, can Mac reset his internal clock? Because he was flustered last year. The pressure got to him. He was sped up, and he was never able to reset. He got back to the point, I thought, where he was reset nicely on Saturday night. You mentioned the plays to Kendrick Bourne. I thought his pocket manipulation was really well done. He had it sucks because I thought the best examples of that was on the throw to Devontae Parker, which he missed. I think it was you texted me during the game and said his arm looked like he had a little more zip on the ball.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah, his 2 misses are overthrows, and obviously he's got to clean that up. I don't know. On Hunter Henry, it looked on TV copy like it was an overthrow. Rewatching it, I think there may have been a miscommunication on the route.
Yeah.
Because the way like they came together and talked ever, I think just the angle of the TV made it look weird. So, he got to clean those up. But overall, for his first game action of the year, coming from where he left off last year, I thought he was good. Again, he was poised in the pocket. The pocket movement was great. You saw some timing stuff, especially with Kendrick Bourne. I think the two of them are picking up right where they left off in 2021. A lot of good stuff. A lot of stuff to like for Mac Jones, certainly in that game.
Yep. Kendrick Bourne was awesome that game too. And you meant that play to Parker. I think that's why we've talked about it. They need to get the 3 interior linemen set, right? Strange, Andrews, and Onwenu, because you might have the tackles that are iffy, and we'll get to that, but you need that pocket for Mac to step up in, and then, that's where you need guys like Mike Onwenu and Cole Strange back in there next to David Andrews.
But I do want to get back to that Kendrick Bourne throw, the first one, not the second one on the dig, and that was maybe a little bit of an overthrow by Mac. Bourne made a nice play to go up and get the ball. The slant, though.
The RPO?
Like an RPO to Kendrick Bourne. I'm sitting there like,
beautiful.
What did I just watch? Like every single thing I was yelling about last year. RPOs, quick hitters, Kendrick Bourne. Boom. Like it was all right there. It really is a new offense. And to see stuff like that, and then like I can't stress this enough, and I think we talked about this before the game, Brian. They were running the base. They're running essentially an outline version of their offense. They weren't getting into the nitty-gritty of what their offense will be. It was the basic Madden playbook version, and it was still more complex than what the offense was ever last year. We saw RPOs. We saw them stretching the field from the slot, from the seam. You saw some more complex route combinations. The combo they ran on the goal line to draw that I forget, was it a DPI or a hold? Whatever that was on Devontae Parker. Like that was set up by a route combination. You didn't have 5 guys running 5 separate routes. You had these 2 guys are going to run their routes, and the one is going to impact the coverage on the other. There was another one on the completion to Demario Douglas. Hunter Henry, the way he releases, it manipulates the way the Packers are covering Douglas. Douglas gets a clean release, and he's wide open up the seam. And that's the kind of thing. Like, we shouldn't be applauding it this much because it is kind of basic, but you almost sort of have to, because I want to highlight the fact that it makes it that much easier to. Last year, how many times was it where I'm sitting here with Mike Cadlick, or I was on the Sports Hub, and I'm like, look, like, I can't, it would take me 2 hours to explain to you why this is a mess. And like, I kept having to give that line that I hated giving, saying, unless you watch the game like we do, you're not going to understand why this isn't on Mac Jones, why this is the coaching staff's fault. And now there's examples that I can point to and say that thing that happened right there, they weren't doing last year. And that was the whole first 3 drives for me. It's like seeing old friends. Oh, an RPO. It's been so long.
Beautiful.
Oh, 2-man route combination. Look at you. You look great. You must have been up to a lot in the last 2 years. I haven't seen you. It felt great. And they're going to have to execute that stuff. And again, there were some times where the execution, Mac missed a couple throws. We'll get to the blocking, but as a 7-on-7 team, they looked amazing. We'll get to the offense, and there is some other execution stuff they have to clean up. The 7-on-7 element looked great.
You texted me, right? Like, is this what an offense was? Like, we're seeing an offense again. But yeah, that's what we kind of expected with Bill O'Brien, right? He comes in here and he makes things difficult for a defense. You've heard from, New England's defensive backs throughout camp, just like he's given us different looks. It's tough, right? They're sequencing things together. And I mean, you mentioned the RPOs. The deep pass to Parker was an under center play action, which how many times were we clamoring for that last year, right? And then we talked about the ball to Hunter Henry, like that was one of O'Brien's staples. You can go watch him on YouTube, break that down. It's a Haas X follow, and then they ran the Haas juke later on the strip sack. So go watch those breakdowns if you haven't on YouTube. Just search Bill O'Brien and those plays. They're excellent. But yeah, it's what we wanted to see from O'Brien. The RPOs, they ran 19 pass plays on RPOs last year, and I think 1 or 2 were slants, right? And the fact that
it was all bubbles. They were doing all bubble screens off the RPOs last year, off the few RPOs they ran.
I know Jones's average air yards per pass on RPOs. Do you know what it was? Do you remember?
It was like negative, right?
Negative 1.3 yards.
So
the fact that third play of the game, second preseason, they're throwing an RPO slant, which Mac was awesome at Alabama. And he talked to Sports Illustrated today, recently. The article came out today saying he wanted to get back to Alabama Mac. So it's looking like they're doing that thanks to Bill O'Brien, and it's a positive step in the right direction here.
Yeah, I would say that it seemed like I've used this term for 2 years now, the Alabamification of the Patriots offense, and it seems like we're finally getting that.
Yep. What'd you think of Zappe? He got some good run, most of the run. I thought it was just kind of the Bailey Zappe, like good in the quick game, right? He had a lot of slants. It seemed that he was some good pocket movements, but some questionable decisions when he was going downfield there.
Yeah, high highs and low lows from him, which is kind of what we've seen throughout camp. I thought, first off, the read to tuck and run for the touchdown was really good.
Yep.
Put good zip on the ball to Kayshon Boutte on the touchdown, and we'll get to Kayshon Boutte in a little bit. But some more batted balls, some more instances where he was holding the ball. He missed some throws, sailed some throws as well. So, again, that's been his camp. Like, there's flashes where he looks really good, and then there's moments where – he's still got kind of a ways to go, and he's got to, I think he, what's the word I'm looking for? I think he overextends himself sometimes. I think he tries to do too much at times. When he plays within himself, he did it on that touchdown drive. Like, they got right up the field and he was playing his game. But I think there's also times where he tries to be, like a Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers type, and kind of extend plays and run around and do the arm angle stuff. And it's just not his bag. And maybe he gets there. Like this, the preseason is the time to work on it. And Bill said that, but like, that's not his bag right now. So when he plays to his skill set, he's still good. Like I've always said this, he's somewhere between the 30th and 35th best quarterback in the league. That's where I believe he's at. And I think that's what you saw, a guy that fits that description Saturday night. Like, he'll make some plays for you, but there are times where he needs to reel it in.
Yep. I'd agree with that. And like that deep ball to Trey Nixon, like in triple coverage, there's no reason to throw that. And I don't think we've got an update on Nixon at all yet. So looked like shoulder or neck, something in there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see. We'll back here for practice tomorrow, so we'll see if he's out there. But do you want to get into the pass catchers or go O line here?
Let's do the offensive line. Let's do a little
Offensive
compliment
line.
sandwich thing.
All right, so it wasn't great again. They were back with the Mafi at left guard, Riley Reef at right guard, and City So at right tackle. He gave up an early sack, third down, kind of got bull rush right back, and then Andrew Stuber came in at left tackle, and he gave up the strip sack. So still a lot of pressure, which kind of Bill alluded to that this morning, right? When they said someone asked him
Seemed like it.
how Mac played, and he's like, Mac was good, but there was a lot of stuff around him that maybe wasn't good, so that he'd have to get used to, or that he's not used to, right? With three new starters up on the offensive line, so wasn't great again Saturday night.
No, it was ugly, and it's kind of a glass half full, glass half empty thing with the offensive line, because you complain about it, and I got a lot of this on Twitter. I think my big takeaway from the game was the good news is, besides the offensive line, I thought the Patriots offense looked really good. The bad news is you need tackles in the NFL. You got to line somebody up a tackle. And people, look at the starters back. And, so it's glass half full, glass half empty. On one hand, it shouldn't be the group it was Saturday night. The 4 of 5, left to right, Trent Brown, Cole Strange, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu. And then we'll see what happens at right tackle or right guard, depending on what happens with Onwenu. Like that, in theory, should be a good enough group. They're not going to be amazing, but they won't be bad. At the same time, all right, well, how often are you going to have that? Because we're now getting into that period. There's a week to go in camp. We're now getting into that window where is Mike Onwenu going to be back? Is he going to have to miss the first 6 weeks of the season? When's Cole Strange coming back? They still really don't have an answer at right tackle. Riley Reef's been moved inside, and I'll get to that in a second, but Connor McDermott, not Connor McDermott, he didn't play. They seemed totally out on Connor McDermott, which I don't get. I thought he was serviceable.
He was hurt, wasn't he? Or he missed that last joint practice.
Something like that. Yeah, he might be hurt. But,
I don't know. I forget if I don't think he dressed, but I can pull that up quick while you finish.
City So gets driven back by Kingley Edingbare with one hand. Like one hand, just never got his feet under him. Same thing happened to Andrew Stuber. He didn't look good. So is it Mike Onwenu at right tackle, Riley Reef at right guard? Because the sneaky nice thing in this is Riley Reef actually looks decent as a guard. That's not why they signed him. They're probably paying him too much to be a guard, and I don't know how long that's going to last. But if that's the best option, that's the best option, right? You're kind of at that point. You got to work with what you have. You also, Trent Brown. Is Trent Brown going to play 17 games? It's great if he does, because he's still, after the false start, I thought he figured it out. But is he going to play 17 games? Because after him, it looks like Andrew Stuber is the backup left tackle. And we saw how that went.
That didn't look good.
Mike Onwenu, Cole Strange already banged up. Are they going to miss time? So that's the glass half empty of it. The glass half full is the starters will be back. Yes, eventually. When? How reliable will they be? Because the depth is scary. After that really starting 4, because there's that TBD on the right side, it falls off dramatically. And if Riley Reef is going to be this guy at right guard, you have to play Mike Onwenu at right tackle when he comes back. You have to do it because it's the best 5. And Dante Scarnecchia always talked about that. That's your best 5. You got to do it. After that, I don't know. You start really getting into the danger zone.
Yeah, I think they're best seeing Reef at right guard. They're probably best going forward with him there, and Onwenu at right tackle. Do they do that? I don't think they do, just because they've been so reluctant to move Onwenu out there. But that seems like where that best unit would come from. And someone
I think they're at the point. I get why they didn't want to move Mike Onwenu last year. I understand.
Yeah, it seems like they have to now, though.
Yeah, his development's no longer an issue. He's in the last year of his contract. You're in a must-win season. There's no, we don't want him to develop a guard. He's in his 4th year. He's developed. He's probably not going to be here next year anyway. You just drafted all of these guards. Either you pay him at right tackle or you let him walk. His development should be a part of the conversation.
Yep. And someone this was interesting too. Like that Stuber just moved over all of a sudden to left. I don't know if that was just to get the look because he's been at right. He was at right in college, and then he was repping at right throughout camp there. So interesting switch there. We saw Bill Murray get reps at right tackle for the first time. Someone asked about Calvin Anderson. Mike Reese had a report that they're hoping he might get back on the practice field sooner here, so maybe he factors into the
It's another
equation
guy that
here.
could factor in. Yep.
But I don't. Do you think it's like we have to see Mike Onwenu this week, or we're not going to see him week one, or where are you kind of at on that? Because Bill usually is like, you need more than just running on the conditioning field to be ready, but they might not have a choice. They might have to just trust Onwenu's going to be ready week one if he's medically cleared.
But at the same time, they've done weird things where they'll like activate a player right before the season off PUP, and then he won't play the first few weeks anyway.
Yeah.
So I go back and forth on that. I don't know. It's so situation specific. I think it would be really encouraging to see him this week. I think you need to see him this week to feel good about it.
Yeah.
Right. Because if it's sight unseen, and let's say, so practices closed to the media, there might be one or two open practices after that Titans game. Depends how they do the schedule this year, but like, it's not going to be a lot. So if we don't see him by then, you're talking about 3 practices with Mike Onwenu, and then he's in there. And if he's playing tackle, Riley Reif's repping at guard, so maybe that's fine. But if he's going to play guard, then is it Reif back out to tackle where he hasn't been practicing? Is it City So, who just hasn't looked good? I trust Mike Onwenu will come back week 1 and be ready. Let me put it that way. Like whenever he comes back, if they have him active week 1, I trust him to be ready week 1. It's the movement of the line around him that I think may need some more time to get caught up. That being said, I still think you just activate him and go for it, because I'd rather have Mike Onwenu with less continuity, right, than no Mike with more continuity with a bad offensive line. But that's more my worry. It's not about him personally. It's about how the guys around him are going to kind of plug into their roles.
Yep. Just it had to be Philly week 1, right? It had to be that.
Right. It has to be like a record-setting pass rush week 1.
I guess one of
into the deep end.
The positives I've seen on the offensive line is Chasen Hines, and not just because his last name, but I thought he's had 2 good games here on the line. He's that big, powerful guy they like, but he's kind of athletic. He's had a few nice pulls in the run game the other night. So I don't know. They have a ton of depth there, so I don't know if he could crack the roster, but he's had a few nice preseason games here. So maybe if Strange and Onwenu are still out this week, I'd like to see him in kind of an elevated role there.
It's just they really handcuffed themselves with the roster,
draft
with the way they drafted, because you have 5 guys that you can't give up on that draft pick, and none of them are hurt. Like I don't think we're going to see any of them Foxborough Flute at this point. So you have the starting 4 of Brown, Strange, Andrews, and Onwenu. They're all going to make the team. Riley Reif's going to make the team. That's 5. Those 3 draft picks are 8. So then you need another tackle. So that's Connor McDermott or Calvin Anderson, probably. So now you're at 9 offensive linemen. Where's Chasen Hines fitting? Where's Cody Russi fitting if he's going to make the team? And Hines has been the guy. Where's Andrew Stuber fitting? But like, it's Hines. If it's a non-rookie, non-starter, it's Chasen Hines. But that's 10 offensive linemen unless they get creative. So they kind of box themselves in with that one. I wrote this. I'm writing it today. It'll be up tomorrow morning. I do this every year. I call them at-large roster spots. I don't think you've been exposed to this yet, Brian. Every host has to hear me give this spiel. Every host of Patriots Beat. The way building an NFL roster works is it's not the best 53 players to make the team. Because how often is the backup quarterback one of the 53 best players on the roster? Rarely. But like, he's making the team. Or like if you draft a project player, 6th or 7th round, you got to keep that guy to develop him. But is he one of the best 53 players at the moment? Probably not. You then get into the thing of 53. It's not the 53 best players because you have to have 2 quarterbacks. You have to have 3 running backs. You have to have 4 wide receivers. You have to have 2 tight ends, like positional minimums, right? When you account for all the positional minimums, that leaves 13 spots that can be won by the best player available. But then you also have guys that are roster locks. So, for instance, the Patriots this year, on average, teams keep a minimum of 5 linebackers. You rarely see teams go below 5 linebackers. Patriots have 6 linebackers that are probably locks. So there goes one of those spots. Matthew Slater also takes away one of those spots. So the math I have on this team right now, and it changes a little bit every year. Last year, there were like none of these spots. I had 6. This year, depending on what happens with Michael Onwenu, it's 8 or 9 spots. 4, and then you have, all right, how many players are competing for those spots? Because Mac Jones isn't competing for one of those spots. He's a roster lock. Christian Gonzalez isn't competing for one of those spots. He's a roster lock. Some of the guys at the bottom of the roster, Trace McSorley, not competing for one of those spots. He's not going to make the team. The guys who are competing for those spots, this is essentially what the roster bubble is, qualified. I have 24 players, not including the guys on PUP or IR or Ty Montgomery or Isaiah Bolden. So you can call it anywhere from 24 to 29 players competing for 8 or 9 spots. That's what the bubble is. And this is where they've handcuffed themselves with the offensive line. They have so many offensive linemen they need to keep that you're pushing a guy like Jason Hines onto the bubble. Yep. Of that group of 23 to 29 players, or 27, whatever the math is Jason Hines going to be one of the best 8 or 9? And in my math, that group includes Malik Cunningham. That group includes Kayshon Boutte. That group includes Miles Bryant. That group includes Daniel Ekuale. So the math kind of starts to go against them, and it gets tough. So anyway, that's the at-large roster spot spiel, but the offensive line's a big part of that picture this year.
Yep, absolutely. I think, if you want to sneak him on, it's probably going to have to be Onwenu starts on PUP or Calvin Anderson starts on NFI or both of that, and then you'd have a spot there. But it'll be interesting to see how that whole thing kind of shakes out. I think you did a roster projection today, right? Did you have 8 or 9? What'd you have on the O line there?
I had 9. I
had
the 9 I listed earlier. Yep.
With the 3 and McDermott as the last guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I had McDermott so I do at the end, I do the last 3 on, last 3 off.
Yep.
I had McDermott as one of my last 3 guys on. I was very tempted to cut him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's fallen off. It hasn't looked great. We'll see if he's healthy. They need
a third tackle. And I don't think either City So is the starting right tackle, but if he's not good enough to be the third tackle. And maybe it's rather Reef, but he's a guard now. So I'd like to think Anderson can be better than McDermott. But McDermott, almost call him a placeholder for that spot. He makes the team right now based off what it looks like. But if Anderson gets healthy, he just swaps into that spot. But at the same time, is this, we can start talking about, remember Yasir Durant? This was a couple years ago. They had no tackles, and they signed 3 tackles off waivers, and Yasir Durant stuck the entire year. I don't know who's going to become available, but you start talking about, is there just a TBD tackle that's going to come into the mix and be the third tackle?
What about Jason Peters? You in on Jason Peters?
No, Jason Peters is 40 years old.
Or who is the other one? Justin Pugh. He's he just had an ACL or something, but he's healthy.
No. Get me somebody who can actually hold up. I'm going to look at something real quick.
Nothing ever happened with Fluker, right? TJ Fluker?
No, which tells me he's not ready. So I just pulled up one of the offensive line, one of the roster projections from Las Vegas. And it does not have Justin Herron on there. And this is one of their main writers.
Familiar name.
If Justin Herron gets waived, absolutely bring him back.
Yeah.
Don't even hesitate. Let me see. What about the one on the Athletic?
He'd be an upgrade over McDermott and City So probably at this point, but
okay. So the Athletic has him on. I think he's kind of a fringe guy. I would even trade the 7th round pick back to get him if we're
give it back.
SB Nation has him on. I'm gonna have to do a thing where I just go through all the Raiders roster projections and see how many have Justin. Although some have Jermaine Illuminor off, so maybe that's the call you make.
I thought he was decent last year. Didn't he start for them?
I thought he did. Maybe it's the 2 of them competing for a job.
I could be wrong. There were 2. It was Cam Fleming in Denver who had a sneaky good year out of nowhere, and then I thought it was Illuminor in Vegas who.
You might be right.
Yeah, but
so maybe maybe that was just one bad roster projection. But
that'd be a name to watch though.
I would watch the guys in Vegas.
Yep. So that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. As it's been the storyline all summer here, it'll continue to be the next few weeks here. So let's get to those pass catchers because awesome day for Kendrick Bourne as we talked about. Kayshon Boutte had a big day. So where are you at with the receivers? Are you keeping all 6 right now? And what'd you see from those guys Saturday night?
I'm keeping all 6. I don't see how they don't. Yeah, we'll get to the other part of that in a little bit. I want to save I told you my mission statement. We'll save that for the end of the show, my mission statement for the next week. But I think they're keeping 6 receivers. They're treating Demario Douglas like a veteran. I've never seen them do this with a rookie, especially like a rookie skill position player. He's on. He is, if he's not a roster lock, he's damn close. And Kayshon Boutte, if he's looking like the guy that at LSU, he's explosive. He's making plays after the catch. He's a physical ball carrier. They can't afford to give up on a guy with that skill set, or even a guy that might appear to have that skill set. And you have the Tyquan injury. So it's 6 initially, but you throw Tyquan on IR if you have to, and then you sign, maybe that's where the third tight end comes in. I only have them keeping 2 tight ends. Maybe that's where you get an extra running back. Maybe that's how you get a specialist, off and on the roster, a guy like Calvin Munson. I don't see how they don't keep 6 receivers right now. I really don't. I think it looks pretty clear to me that they should do that.
Yeah. I mean, that Boutte touchdown was like the exact play at LSU against Emmanuel Forbes, right? Where he just took that slant to the house, and to see him have that explosiveness back that, once he had that ankle injury in LSU, he completely lost that. He had that bad combine, which is probably why that and some off-field stuff, which is why he was available in the 6th round. But I mean, that play looked like freshman year Kayshon Boutte, which was like a projected 1st-round pick. So at this point, I don't know how I mean, I know there's a chance you get him through waivers, but I just don't think it's worth it. And then the point that you brought up a few weeks ago, like the rookie contract, right? Like if you have him and believe in him, like you got to keep him on that rookie contract. So I think it's 6. KB looked awesome. Demario Douglas, they're just keeping him in the garage, right? He had 3 snaps and 2 catches, so he looks like a lock. But yeah, I think this is going to end up with 6, which isn't what they usually do, but it looks like they're doing a bunch of new stuff this year, so I'm leaning 6.
Yeah, I'm going to be annoyed if they move on from Kayshon Boutte at this point. He's shown too much, and they're keeping Demario Douglas, like that, understood. He's shown too much. This is the skill set that we've been waiting for, a guy that can create after the catch, a guy that's explosive, a guy with speed. That's the guy they've needed on offense for a long time. And he should be in the rotation too. He should be in the rotation. Honestly, like if Thornton's going to miss this next week in this next preseason game, I don't know where his playing time's coming from. He kind of becomes an almost ran and also ran.
So what was that report? It was Chris Price, I believe, said he was like week to week.
Week to week, right? Yeah. Which not day to day, because a lot of times you hear day to day. He's week to week. That said something to me. That told me that maybe. And for what I heard, that it's not serious, but if they need to get a roster spot, can he afford to miss the first 4 weeks of the season? Maybe. The only thing, I didn't hear all that. I heard that it's not serious. My follow-up is, but if it's week to week and he's fallen off the depth chart anyway, is there a chance that they use this injury to essentially save a roster spot for 4 weeks? Yep. If Demario Douglas has passed him on the depth chart, if Kayshon Boutte passed him on the depth chart, if he's going to be your 6th wide receiver anyway, you have that speed element, Demario Douglas. Yeah.
That'd be tough. And then, it just opens the roster spot for a guy like Calvin Munson, I think, who, you mentioned would just be the perfect, like, slip him through. Does he require waivers anymore? Munson's
the NFL waiver thing is so weird. And that and practice squad don't even, whoever's on the practice squad's on the practice squad. I'm not even going to try to guess that. I'll just keep saying I'm putting players on the practice squad when I cut them, not knowing if it's possible or not.
Just someone else will clarify the rules there. But last thing offensively, just anything, that third tight end battle, if Gesicki's not ready. I thought Sokol looked good, in the run game, like as that inline blocker, which they might need here. But I don't know. Did any of those guys kind of stand out to you, him, Ferkser?
Yeah, not really. No, I think Ferkser probably is the best body of work to this point. You're right. Sokol's the better blocker. Either way. So I only have them keeping 2 tight ends.
Me too.
Because I think you can get either of those guys, both of those guys, to the practice squad. And honestly, Sokol probably makes more sense week 1 because you mentioned the Eagles pass rush. You're going to need another blocker. And maybe when you go up against a team that's a little more susceptible to the passing game against tight ends, you want to run more true 12, you go to Ferkser. So neither of them have earned a roster spot to me. I think Ferkser is probably the favorite to be the 3rd tight end. But again, with the practice squad elevation rules, that doesn't mean he's on the 53.
Yep. It's what they've done the last 2 years, right? When it was Jonnu and Henry, they've just kept those 2. And if they needed another one, they've elevated. So I don't know why it would be different this year based off what we've seen. But anything offensively? Any other notes you had, guys who caught your eye?
Yeah, actually. And this is a guy that I have kind of almost gotten criticized for being too critical of. I think I was right, but maybe I need to revisit that. JJ Taylor had a very impressive game.
Awesome
as
game.
a pass catcher, as a runner, as a pass blocker. That great play where the blitz is coming in on Zappe. He picks it up, is able to adjust, get to a spot where Zappe can find him, easy, makes the catch. And I think he picked up like 14 yards, made a guy miss. Maybe this is the time for JJ Taylor. I've kind of said that if he was an NFL running back, he would have shown us at this point, but they don't have a ton of options after Elliott and Stevenson. They need a guy. Ty Montgomery's still hurt. We haven't seen anything from Pierre. Well, Pierre Strong is in concussion protocol. Yep. Kevin Harris is hurt. I think this. If JJ Taylor is going to have his moment, this is it. Because if he can look like that, they need that skill set. They absolutely need it. Now, he's another guy that maybe they know they can get to the practice squad because, again, it's been 4 years. But I wasn't even thinking about JJ Taylor in reference to the roster before Saturday night. But that performance, yeah, he's in the conversation now. He's absolutely in the conversation at running back. I thought he was great.
Yeah, he was awesome. And Bill gave him some praise this morning, right? And he said, like, he's evolved in special teams and in the passing game, he said, which is something he hasn't been able to do when he first got here. So that's, two noticeable things for what they might need in that third or fourth running back. So who knows? Maybe, what year is he in? 4? Maybe he
came in the pandemic year because you had 6'6" Cam Newton trying to run mesh reads with 5'6" JJ Taylor, and it was difficult. And that's not anybody's fault, but it was like the height difference. They had to like reinvent the handoff because the height difference was kind of funny to watch.
Not as quite the infamous 6-year jump that Dietrich Wise took last year, but the 4th-year jump or whatever.
Yeah. You're right. If Dietrich Wise could have the 6-year jump, maybe JJ Taylor is the 4th-year jump.
Who knows? But yeah, we'll see there. But that's all I had offensively. So would you like to hear from our friends over at FanDuel, then go over to the defense a little bit?
Yes. Where is it? There it is. Let's do that. Nope, that's not a video. Where? Great blooper. There it is.
Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. I wonder how many people are going to bet on the Patriots. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/Boston.
All right, so defensively, we also got a bit of a look at the starting defense, even though they kept things pretty basic, like scheme-wise. It was just pretty vanilla there. So, but you started to see some of these, how much they might align. It was a lot of, Jabril Peppers and Adrian Phillips deep, it looked like, in that, free safety role. Not much of a pass rush. I think Matt LaFleur said, like, they didn't have any QB hits all game, but that's something you'd expect to get better when, they're playing Judon and Uche all day. But I don't know. What were your big things on the defense there?
So you mentioned a couple of those safeties there. I think Jalen Mills has been excellent.
He's been awesome.
Preseason. Yeah. And him as kind of that rover safety, like that's back in the role he played in and excelled in Philly. I love that for him. I think it's a great fit. I think it adds another layer to this defense. That was my biggest takeaway on the one of my two biggest takeaways on the defense. Actually, another one, but I thought Jalen Mills was excellent. If we're going to talk about the secondary,
yeah, and he's been. I mean, he was awesome in the Houston game too, right? He had the pick, and then he had a few nice plays down at the line of scrimmage too. So, just playing closer to that line of scrimmage there, I think it's helped him and benefited him. But what was your other big one there in the secondary?
The run defense was a little concerning.
Oh yeah,
and look, the Packers are a good rushing team, and they got two really good running backs. But Patriots were the 4th best run defense in the league last year in terms of yards per game against. The Patriots starting defense allowed 5.4 yards per carry. You saw Devon Godshaw getting moved out of the way a lot. You saw Carl Davis getting moved out of the way a lot. Those are supposed to be your run stoppers. Those are your nose tackles. It's one game, so I'm not going to say like they're doomed for the season, but they should be a better run defending team than that. I'm not really sure where that came from. That's something I'm going to, and they got another tough test next week in Tennessee against the run, of course. So that's going to be a big thing to watch going into that game, is where the run defense is at.
And Bentley didn't play, so that's a big part of their run defense. But
yeah,
I didn't think Mac Wilson looked great against the run, and that's something that got him benched right at the end of last year. He really fell out of the rotation after that Green Bay game. Speaking of the Green Bay run game, that the misdirection stuff, he had trouble with that in the regular season, and then his role really just decreased there. So yeah, that run defense will be interesting to watch there as it gets further. Wish we saw some Marte Mapu. We still didn't, even though he shed his red non-contact jersey. Keon White didn't play after it looked like something minor that last joint practice day. But yeah, that run defense will be put to the test definitely against Tennessee.
Yeah, and that to me is now we haven't talked a ton about the defense this preseason, and I know some people think it's because we're doing like the fantasy football thing with the wide receivers. No, it's because it's pretty much the same unit it was last year. They added Christian Gonzalez, who we've talked about, who had a good game that was not pass interference.
No, not
we've
at all.
talked about Keon White. He didn't play because he was hurt, but he's looked good. We haven't seen Mapu. Those are the interesting guys to talk about on defense. And there's that third corner competition, which nobody really gained much ground this week.
Yep.
It's pretty much the same unit. So this is something new, again, with the run defense thing. That's what I'm watching. But you've seen a lot of what you expected to see from the defenses here. The run defense thing, again, is that thing that it's the first time that the defense has done something that kind of surprised me so far at this preseason training camp, whatever.
I agree with that. I think one guy I had who was kind of the same boat as Chase and Hines in the offense, just the defense, was Sam Roberts. I know he had a few boneheaded penalties, that unnecessary roughness was bad. But I thought it was like a second game where he's been pretty disruptive at the line of scrimmage and probably one of their better run defenders that game. But again, it's that defensive line. It's so talented. It's so deep. I don't know if there's a spot for him there unless, maybe they part with like a Lawrence Guy. But at this point, I don't see them doing that, I don't think, because, that holdout looks like it's in the rearview mirror. But Sam Roberts has been pretty impressive, I thought, through 2 games.
I don't know. I just think the kind of penalties he made in that game, those aren't going to get you on the team.
Yeah.
For a guy that's probably as on, and look, he'll probably stick around on the practice squad, but for a guy that's on the line as he is, I don't know. I think that's a lot for him to overcome.
Yeah. He seems like they get him to the practice squad. He works with, Covington for a year like he did last year. Then is Guy a free agent after this year? Does he have one more year?
I think he has one more year.
One more year.
So, I think he has one more year, but I don't think there's any guaranteed money. I think that's what that holdout was about.
Okay. So, maybe that becomes his role next year if he progresses how he likes on the practice squad, but we'll see there. Gonzo, yeah, I agree. That wasn't pass interference. I thought he played that perfectly. He read the double move. You saw that athleticism. Turn. How often do you see pass interference when they turn and look at the ball, right? Like, I don't know. That was weird. I
also thought there was one other play. This was, I think, in the second half. Might have been late in the first half, where it was a 3rd and short, and they swung it out in the flat, and Gonzalez was the defender at the point, and he got down, squared up. It was like Pop Warner tackling drills. Like, it was so technically sound, and that sounds like a dig. It's not. Like, he needed to be a better tackler coming out of college. We all knew that, but he squared up. He took the guy on in space. He didn't get the first down. Good sign of growth. So I thought, honestly, more so than the PBU, like a play like that, all right, he's learning how to tackle. He needs to do. Remember what happened in week 1? Like his first play?
Yeah.
So to come there, like he's getting better. That's good to see.
Yep. I'd agree with that. That was on my notes. But, yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, defense is just like, it's the same unit. So, there's a few things, obviously, without McCourty that you pick up, but it's pretty much what we've seen from them last year. So, I don't know if you had any other little notes there before we can get into the good special team stuff, which I've seen a lot of comments about, which I love in the chat. But any last things defensively?
I think that was pretty much it. Again, we still got to see, and we'll see what happens with Isaiah Bolden. And thankfully, he's doing okay. But with him, Amir Speed, Sean Wade, I didn't think anybody really emerged in that battle. I think that was pretty much it for me on defense.
Yep. All right. So let's get into special teams. Josh is getting us right into it with Bryce Boominger, because there might have been some struggles down in Green Bay, it sounded like.
Hang on, before we get to that, like Bryce Boominger is a good name, but Evan Valenti, who covers the Celtics CLNS, during the in-stadium practice, tweeted at me that we should just call him the stopwatch.
The stopwatch.
So I'm sticking with
I like
that one.
that.
Yeah, because of the hang times.
He's the
So
stopwatch.
Boomager's good, but I like the stopwatch.
I like that. But he whatever struggles he had, they weren't there Saturday night. He had 2 punts, both downed inside the 20. They were 120 yards, 3 total return yards, and PFF had him like 4.9 average seconds of hang time throughout both of them. I mean, the second one was like 5 plus 70 air yards. So he was awesome Saturday night. And any issues he might have been working through, those, he's just a gamer. It doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah, no, he looked really good. I think, little slump, but he should be the punter again. He looks like he's in command of that competition.
Yep. It's still,
and you can breathe easy now. You can put your pants back on after you rewatch those punts so many times.
I wasn't hitting the panic button, but the reports, might have been hovering over it. So, but we're back. The panic button is in the drawer, tucked away. Would you still expect Waitman maybe on the practice squad here?
Yeah,
Just keep that lefty foot.
To keep the lefty foot, yeah, I still think he's going to be around. And if not him, like they'll have a punter on the practice squad, a lefty punter on the practice squad if somebody else claims Waitman. But I still think they'll keep a punter in that role.
Yep. Not Michael Pilardi. Who signed him the other day?
Somebody signed Michael Pilardi?
Yeah, I want to say Arizona, but that might
sounds like something they would do. No, Washington. That also sounds like something they would do.
It's a Washington move too.
Yeah.
Michael Pilardi. The Pilardi party was something, but kickers, we're still doing this 2 kicker rotation. Ryland and Folk, they switched off kickoffs. Nick Folk had the first extra point, and then he had the first one? Did he?
They alternated extra points and kickoffs. They each got 2 of each.
So I don't know. It looks like we're keeping 2, like we've been talking about.
They're keeping 6 receivers and they're keeping 2 kickers, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's my mission statement for the last week. Again, my whole take on this bit, I would not keep 2 kickers. I think you trust the kid you draft in the 4th round, but they have not done anything yet
to show that,
to allow me to say convincingly that they have ruled out keeping 2 kickers. We talked about that roster bubble before. 9 players for 23 spots. I have Nick Folk in that group. If Nick Folk can be one of the 9 best players in that group, because that's what they're giving him a chance to do now, is prove that he's worth keeping. Even if he was, and I've seen some people say, no, they're playing him to showcase him for a trade. One, then he would be getting all of the reps. Ryland wouldn't be getting reps. And 2, people know who Nick Folk is. He's been in the league long enough. You don't need to showcase a guy like Nick Folk. I think they should trade Folk. And I think they could trade him. I don't think they would need to cut him. I think they could trade him. But I do think there's a chance they keep 2 kickers. I still have not been dissuaded from that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Did you have 2 on your roster projection?
I had 2 on my roster projection. And I was already, I was so set to do it 1 week and then
just leave it.
And then be like, all right, I said this piece, I put it on paper. I put it out there that I think this is a chance. And now I'm going to go back to doing the normal thing. And I was like, so I was ready. I was like, all right, Ryland's going to get all the kicks in this game and they'll put it to bed. And I can be like, oh, that was goofy when I did that last week, right? Nope. It's still there. It's still hanging around. Can't disprove it yet.
I just, even if they were planning on keeping both, don't you think they would just have Ryland kick now? Because you said it, they know who Nick Folk is. So why not just get the rookie all this experience right now?
Because they want to see if Nick Folk's
just going to completely...
regression at the end of the year is still there or not. Because if it's not, they want to keep him. That's what I think's happening.
I don't like it, but you can't rule it out, as we've been saying for a few weeks now. So we'll see there. The only other special teams that they had a lot of penalties. Special teams, it felt like at least 2 or 3.
They had that bad one last week from Diego Fago. I'm trying to remember what they were.
There wasn't any as severe as that one that gifted them a first down, but they had a few. They had at least 2 returns called back. I think one on Chris Board too. So I don't know, just something to watch there from the special teams unit.
Something to watch, I guess.
Yep. But unless you had anything else, I think that's pretty much all the game recap. 2 practices this week, tomorrow and Wednesday. No joint practices anymore, as a lot of you have probably heard, here in Foxborough, and then they'll go down to Tennessee Thursday for the game on Friday. But Any other last thoughts there from you?
No, I think that pretty much covers the game. Yeah, we'll get to it this week. This is it. This is crunch time for the roster.
This is it. Yep. So Alex and I will be down at Gillette the next 2 days to watch those practices, and of course we will be back right here to recap that all for you. But until then, you can go follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth and go read all his coverage over at 985thesportshub.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @IamBrianHines and go read all my coverage over at patspulpit.com. Thank you all for tuning in as always, and we will see you guys tomorrow.